Hello and welcome back to Sweet Sycamore. You're going to have to excuse the sick voice. I was at summer camp with a bunch of elementary school girls, and although I loved the cuddles and the hugs, they got me sick. But that's okay. It's not going to stop me from sharing the Word of God with you guys today. And we are here in episode 17 as we dig into chapter 9 of the book of Esther. Where we left off, Mordecai and Esther had just come up with a second edict to kind of try to counteract the first edict since it couldn't be put as void. And the first edict said that all the people of Persia had the authority to kill, slaughter, and annihilate any of the Jewish people and then take all their possessions of those that they kill. And so Mordecai and Esther come up with a counter edict that basically says the Jews are able to defend themselves and that they can kill, slaughter, annihilate anybody who comes at them and take the plunder from them or whatever they own. And so both of these decrees are going into effect on the same day. So that's where we start in chapter 9, verse 1. It says, "So on March 7th, the two decrees of the king were put into effect. On that day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but quite the opposite happened. It was the Jews who overpowered their enemies." The day had finally come. It was either going to be doomsday or like a victory day. Have you ever had the day? Have you ever had to wait for a day to come? Whether it be a court case where you know either the outcome is going to be favorable or it's going to just shatter you. It may be a decision that somebody knows is going to happen. It could be layoffs at work that you know are going to happen on a certain day. So many things, when we know something is going to come down at a certain hour of the day, it is like torture leading up to that day because you have no idea if after that day you are going to be completely shattered or completely full of hope or maybe somewhere in the middle. But it is torture waiting for that day. And these people had about 9 months to wait until March 7th from when the second decree was actually put into place. Now, both of these edicts actually had the same amount of power behind them. They were both signed with the king's signet ring. They were both put in place by the person who was right hand to the king. Haman wasn't there anymore, but he was still in authority when he put that into place. And so both of these had power and force behind them, except one had God's favor resting on it. However, you're also in a country that does not know God, that does not worship the one true God. So they may not consider one having the favor of God on it. So which one is going to win in the end? Well, I love how the verse doesn't actually leave us in suspense. We hear right away that the Jewish people overcame their enemies. They overpowered them. And the writer of Esther is quick to get to the point. Why? Why were they so quick? Why didn't they tell us how things actually went down? Well, it wasn't about the fight. It was actually about God. God was the one that reversed these decisions. Those that wanted to dominate, guess what? They became dominated over. And those who actually came for destruction, they were destroyed. Those that were powerless, now they were powerful. And all of that reversal isn't about the people, but it's to show the might and the power of God that was behind the Jewish people. It was to give glory where glory was due. And that's why the writer doesn't go into detail, because it wasn't about the people. It was about God and God actually moving in this moment. So verse 2 goes on and says, "The Jews gathered in their cities throughout all the king's provinces to attack anyone who tried to harm them. But no one could make a stand against them, for everyone was afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the highest officers, the governors, and the royal officials helped the Jews for fear of Mordecai. For Mordecai had been promoted to the king's palace, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces as he became more and more powerful." Do you ever feel like God is slow to move? Have you ever felt like God is slow to move? I wish I could tell you I have never felt that, but man, have I asked God over and over in seasons of my life, why aren't you moving? Why do you seem so stagnant? Yes, absolutely. And I wish I could tell you I haven't, but I have. And because of that, I know what it's like to wait on God. And it is rough and it is tough, and they are waiting on God. They had to wait 9 months from this second edict to the battle, wishing it was behind them because they wondered what the outcome would actually be. But God was doing amazing things in these 9 months. He was raising up Mordecai. He was making Mordecai famous. That was not something that you could just do overnight. It was something that took time. The nobles of every province, did you hear that? Every province, the highest officers, the governors, the royal officials, they were all supporting the Jews because of the 9 months that God had to make Mordecai famous. And I need to hear this in my own life because sometimes I view time as my enemy because I just want to get to the end of the story. I just want to know what God is going to do. Did you know that good things take a little bit of time? Time is not my enemy. Time is actually my friend. And God can do amazing things in the wait when I am patient with Him because He is always working in the details and good things take time. A friend of mine told me this week when we were at camp, and he talked about God's promises being like crock pot promises. And I love that analogy because I thought, oh yeah, like a crock pot takes a long time, but it's always so good because it just savors. And that is sometimes what God's promises are like. I thought that was a beautiful analogy. They're kind of the crock pot promises. You just have to wait. Good things take time. Time is not our enemy, and time is what God needed in this moment to bring Mordecai up so that every official was actually respecting him and was siding with the Jews, even though they themselves were not Jews. So verse 3 says, "So the Jews went ahead on the appointed day and struck down their enemies with the sword. They killed and annihilated their enemies and did as they pleased with those who hated them. In the fortress of Susa itself, the Jews killed 500 men. They killed Pershandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Adalia, Eridetha, Parmashta, Erasia, Eradia, and Vazatha, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. But they did not take any plunder." Now, I need us to notice something that is so important here. They upheld the law in which they only attacked people who were attacking them. This is not an act of war. This is an act of protection. The Jewish people did not go after anybody who wasn't attacking them first. So it's important to know that although the Jewish people do kill a lot of people, they are only killing people who are trying to kill them. This is protection, not an act of war. They still have to live with these people after this moment. And we're going to see this going forward, that they are not trying to make enemies. They are trying to make peace, to live in peace. But 500 men, it's a lot of men when we are talking about only the city center. And this does not count the other provinces and what is going on there. Now, those names that I listed that were incredibly hard to pronounce, those are the 10 sons of Haman, and they went after the Jewish people directly. Perhaps they went after the Jewish people because they were stripped of everything. Remember that Haman died a traitor's death to the crown, which meant everything that he owned was given back to the crown, which in turn was given to Mordecai. So I am positive that these 10 sons of Haman who were left with nothing were probably ticked off at the Jewish people. And so they are going after the Jewish people, probably hoping that maybe they can redeem some of that wealth since they are able to take the plunder of anybody that they kill. Now, interesting enough that all 10 sons actually fall to the sword of the Jewish people. Every single one of them, not one was successful. Again, that shows me the hand of God intervening in all of this. It also breaks my heart for Zeresh, the mother of these 10 sons, the wife of Haman, the woman who is now left with nothing. And so I actually find it interesting again when it says that they took no plunder after they list the names of the 10 sons. Whatever few things Zeresh has left it is clear that the Jewish people, although they have rights to everything, since every single one of her sons has come after them, they actually take nothing from her. Again, making sure to extend that olive branch of peace when they could have taken the plunder. They could have taken the little bit that she had left. And I find this very interesting because we're going to see that it wasn't just with the 10 sons. They do this with everybody where they don't take any plunder. So why? Why wouldn't they take the plunder? Well, it all goes back to the original battle, and the fact that they didn't take plunder shows us that this was a holy war. The fact that it lists the 10 sons by name tells us that this is a holy war that has gone back hundreds and hundreds of years, back when the Israelites were told, God told them to kill the Amalekites. But King Saul decided to keep King Agag, the Amalekite leader, alive. And they decided to take the plunder when God said, take no plunder. So the Amalekites become the Agagites as King Agag has a child with a woman before he is killed by Samuel. So the reason they take no plunder is because they're going back to the mistake they made hundreds of years earlier and going, hey, when God said take no plunder, we took plunder, including the king. And that is the reason we are in this situation right now with the Agagites hating the Jewish people. And so they're actually kind of going back to the promise they should have kept with God hundreds of years earlier. And that is the reason why they are taking no plunder. Again, showing us this is a holy war. This isn't a war against people. This is a war where they are trying to go back and honor what God had told them to do many years previously. I guess this kind of shows me that it's never too late to get things right. I mean, a lot of times we pay for our past mistakes. I think we can all agree that there are certain areas of our life that we pay for past mistakes, even if it is just the memory of mess ups that you wish you could take back and you still remember. It's like you still are paying for your past mistakes. Even though the Lord has forgiven you, you're still having a hard time forgiving yourself. But I love the story here because what this tells me is that even hundreds and hundreds of years later, they are making amends with God. And it's never too late to make amends with God. And we are going to see this here with the Jewish people. And we can apply this even in our own life, that it's never too late to say, okay, Lord, I got to get this right. I know where I screwed up and I just don't want to do it again. So even though they could have walked away from this situation so wealthy, I mean, you think about the plunder of 500 households that they just gave up. Are you willing to do the same if you know it's what God's calling you to do? Are you willing to give up riches and the fame and the notoriety? Are you willing to live a simple life if you know that it's what God has for you? I'm going to tell you, it's not always easy to lay all of that down when you know it's what God is calling you to do, or you know that you can make a quick buck by going and doing something that you shouldn't do. But it is always the wise decision, and we see that here with the Jewish people. But verse 11, it says that very day when the king was informed of the number of people killed in the fortress of Susa, he called for the queen. He said, the Jews have killed 500 men in the fortress of Susa alone, as well as Haman's 10 sons. I mean, he's even impressed by this. If they have done that here, what else has happened in the rest of the provinces? But now, what more do you want? It will be granted to you. Tell me, and I will do it for you. Remember, everything comes in and out of the fortress of Susa by horse. So to find out how many people actually died in the other provinces, it's going to take a while to find out when you're talking about a massive empire. And the king is not nervous about the Jewish people. I want us to look at this not as like ooh, look what you did. It's almost like he's impressed. He's like, hey, I'll give you more. He values a win. Remember, this is the king that wined and dined everybody in order to get a military victory at the very beginning of the story. He wants to be a part of the winning team, and the Jewish people are the winning team at this moment. So he says, whatever you want. She could have asked for anything in this moment. But listen to what she asked for in verse 13. Esther responded, if it please the king, give the Jews in Susa permission to do it again tomorrow as they have done today. and let the bodies of Haman's 10 sons be impaled on a pole. So the king agreed, and the decree was announced in Susa. And they impaled the bodies of Haman's 10 sons. Then the Jews at Susa gathered together on March 8th and killed 300 more men. And again, they took no plunder. She asked for one more day. Now, she asked it just for Susa itself, but still, she asked for one more day. Why? Why would you ask for one more day? You just killed 500 people. Why in the world would you want to do this one more day? Especially then, what does it grant you? Because you're taking no plunder. It's not like killing more people or allowing people to attack you for one more day does anything for you, because you're not going to get richer. You're not going to take any plunder. So why? Why ask for one more day? You see, what Esther was actually doing here was pressing through toward completion of a holy war against those that were self-declared enemies of God or self-declared enemies of the Jewish people. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of somebody within Susa. The reason she declares it just for Susa itself is because Haman had years and years of influence in Susa, declaring the Jewish people as people that those should hate. So there's a lot of hate running through the veins of the city of Susa for the Jewish people. And not to mention the 10 sons and all of the people that know them. And so we're seeing that this has probably spread pretty deep in the city of Susa. And so that could be why she is declaring it just for the city of Susa. But if we put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who lives in the city of Susa, let's say they're like, well, I'm not going to fight. I don't need to fight the Jewish people. I don't have beef with them. But then you go, wait a minute, but my cousin just tried to kill them and they just killed my cousin. So next time I have an opportunity to take them out because they killed my cousin, even though my cousin was going to kill them and that's why they killed my cousin. But now I'm going to kill them, right? Have you ever noticed that sometimes you don't have a beef with somebody until they give you a reason to have a beef with them? And that could have been why Esther asked for one more day, because she knew that all these people, these 500 people that they have killed successfully, where it looks like not one Jewish person has been even harmed in all of this, that this could tick off some people. This could give them the reason for the fight when they say, oh, well, you did kill my brother even though he was coming after you, and now I want to come after you. And it looks like that is exactly what happened when 300 more people came after them the second day that didn't come after them the first day. However, all 300 of those men were killed, again, not even mentioning one Jewish person who was killed or even harmed. It was another day, it was another round, and the reason Esther was so confident in this is because she saw God's hand. The only reason she would ask for one more day wasn't because she thought that she was risking the Jewish people. She knew exactly where God's hand was sitting. This was an act of confidence in who God was and that God was going to be the same God tomorrow that he is today. Do we do the same thing? Do we sit in confidence with God when we have the God victories? Do we go, hey, Lord, I know you're going to do the same thing tomorrow as you did today because you are God? Do we sink our own heels into the goodness of God and go, Lord, I know that if I am faithful on my side, that you will be faithful on your side. You see, they were continually faithful in the fact that they took no plunder, both the first day and the second day. And God was faithful in giving them the victory. I have to say, this is one lesson that God is teaching me throughout my life, is that there will always be areas that I have to sit in the unknown. There will always be periods of time where I am waiting and waiting and waiting without knowing what the future holds. But here is one thing I do know. If I am faithful, he will be faithful. He may not always do things the way I think he should, in the timing that I think he should, but I do know that he is a good father, and I do know that he is faithful to me. But I also know that I need to do my part in being faithful to him, and even in the hard situations. And so perhaps there's an area of your life that feels completely out of control, like these Israelites had here within their life. And I just want to encourage you to take the areas of your life that you do have control over and make sure you are faithful. Make sure you are doing what God is calling you to do with the areas you can control. And I promise you that He will be faithful in the areas of your life that are within His control. I truly hope that God spoke to you today as we dug a little bit deeper into the story of Esther. We'll be back again next Wednesday, and we're going to really dig a little bit deeper into the Holy War and what it meant for the people. And also, we're going to party hard and the festival that follows. We'll be back again next Wednesday here on our Sweet Sycamore Devotions. Have a fabulous week, my friends.